Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm taking over the ultimate $750 gaming PC build for 2017. So make sure to drop a like, rate and subscribe, but let's get straight into it with the performance you can expect from a system of this caliber. Now, in terms of the latest AAA titles, we're talking Overwatch and the newly released Battlefield 1 for example. You're looking at high settings, 60 frames per second with anti-aliasing and VSync notched down or turned off. Now, in terms of the older games, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Minecraft, CSGO, Dota 2, those kind of titles, you're looking ultra settings, 60 and well over 100 frames per second in some cases as well, depending on the title and of course the resolution. But let's kick it off with the CPU. In terms of the CPU, Intel's Core i5-7500 is the Kaby Lake successor to the Skylake 6500, which is a very popular i5. Now, this chip is going to be great for gaming. There really is no need to go up to an i7 as it just won't provide you with any kind of decent value, especially for the money. Now, the CPU is quad core and it has 4 physical cores as opposed to 2 hyper-threaded and 2 physical cores. And whilst a CPU with 2 cores and 2 hyper-threaded cores, their new i3s and some of their Pentiums, a prime example of this, will work with games that require quad-core CPUs such as GTA 5. They're not actually physical quad-core chips, which means the performance of this is inevitably going to be quite a bit better. Whilst this chip isn't overclockable, it does come in clocked at 3.4 GHz. Now, whilst that isn't 4 GHz by any stretch, it is much better than the 2.7 GHz clock speed we saw on their non-overclockable 6400 from last generation. Overall, a really solid CPU, which will also help you dabble into a bit of editing with something like After Effects and Premiere Pro, alongside gaming and maybe even a little bit of streaming. In my builds running up to this with lower price points, I've been recommending Cooler Master's Hyper 212 Evo as kind of an addition for those with a bit more cash to splash. In this build though, I've incorporated it right into the budget. It really is a fantastic CPU cooler, and whilst you do get a CPU cooler, the stock cooler with your CPU, I couldn't sit here feeling satisfied with myself having recommended something to you that sounds like it would take off. If you use that stock cooler, your PC will be very loud, and that's really going to damage your overall user experience and impression of how good you think it is. The CPU cooler though isn't just there to look good, nor is it there to just save your eardrums from very irritable noises. It has many practical applications, even for those not able to overclock. The first is the lifespan and longevity of your CPU. By going with a cooler, your CPU heats up much slower, even when under 100% load. And now this reduction of heat cycles and getting very hot and very cold very quickly will actually mean that your CPU will last longer and need to be replaced more infrequently, which is great for everybody. It also prevents the CPU from thermal throttling. Now, thermal throttling is when your CPU gets so hot it actually has to slow itself down to prevent itself from overheating, something nobody wants. And you don't want to be losing performance by simply having bad thermal and bad heat output. In terms of the motherboard, because we haven't gone for an overclockable CPU, we don't need to go for a really pricey motherboard, which will help to facilitate this with better motherboard cooling, especially around the CPU socket and on the VRMs. MSI's Gaming H110 is a fantastic micro ATX motherboard with all the features and support that we need. It has a PCI Gen 3 X16 slot to facilitate for even the latest, most bandwidth hungry graphics cards such as a GTX 1070 and 1080, plenty of SATA 3 6GB per second ports, which are great for adding more hard drives and SSDs in later on down the line, and support of course for RAM upgrade options. Now, talking of RAM upgrade options, I went for a 1x8GB configuration of Crucial's Ballistix Sport LT. It will allow for great upgrade paths when adding in an identical 8GB DIMM later on down the line for 16GB of total RAM, and is of course on the DDR4 standard, not only necessary for Kaby Lake chips, but far superior to something like DDR3. For storage, I really did want to squeeze an SSD in this build for super fast boot times, but it just wouldn't fit in the budget. So for that, head up to my next video, my $800 PC for slightly faster storage. Nevertheless, a 1TB Western Digital Blue drive is fantastic. It's 7200 RPM, so as fast as kind of mainstream consumer hard drives get, and has 1000GB of capacity for all your movies, music, Steam games, that kind of thing. Not only that, it's also very cheap and very value oriented, and if you did want another terabyte of storage, you can either add in a second drive later on down the line, or you can just go for a 2TB drive and splash a bit more cash. As always, links to everything for Amazon will be in the description below. In terms of the graphics card, it was another easy choice. Nvidia's GTX 1060 has been a little bit pricey in my opinion, and the RX 480 not only supports VR, but also works great at 1080 and even a bit of 1440p. MSI's gaming Radeon RX 480 comes in a red and black colour scheme, which not only looks sick, but keeps the graphics card nice and cool. It's got a 4GB frame buffer, which will allow you to crank those settings up in GTA 5, which is known to be a bit of a VRAM whore. Overall, a fantastic graphics card from MSI with great overclocking support and very good thermal and acoustic design. To house this system, Corsair's Carbide series Spec M2 was a good option. Whilst you can go for a very cheap case and not really see any performance degradation, you do want one with good airflow and it looks nice. If you're spending $750 or $800 on a system and your case looks a little bit crap and your mate comes around and you go, yeah, $700 there mate, and they go, oh right, looks like some Chinese bloke made that with some plastic and glue, then it doesn't really set the right impression. Now maybe that's me being a bit snobby, but you want a good PC and you want a good build experience as well. That's another thing. Get a good case and you get a build experience that is inevitably easier. The standoffs, for example, might come pre-installed. The instruction manual will be better laid out in English. All those kind of features are things that people often overlook and then come to regret. Building in a nice case is far more important than you would think, and this option from Corsair is perfect. For the power supply, I went for a 600 watt 80 plus bronze certified unit from EVGA. Yes, 600 watts is a tiny bit overkill. That being said, it does allow for good upgrade options, and that 80 plus certification means it's going to save you money at the wall with greater efficiency and less wasted energy output in the form of heat or noise. Overall, a solid unit from EVGA that is trustworthy, comes in at a great price, and remember, don't scrimp on your power supply, because it has the potential to wipe out your whole system, and this one certainly won't be doing that anytime soon. But that wraps it up for this build. If you did enjoy it, you know what to do. Smash that like button, follow my Twitter at GeekaWhat, and subscribe for tech reviews, PC builds, PC build guides, all that kind of jazz. But as always, we'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.